right, guys, welcome back to another episode here on YouTube. And I am really excited to bring something to you guys that really is, it's been part of my life as a man. And I think so many men do this on a regular basis, but it's self-sabotaging and what we struggle with when we do this. And there's a lot of conflicting messages here, I think, because the fact that many men have a piece of themselves where they don't believe that they're capable of having something bigger in life, of being something more, right? We get into this perspective of we're put into a job and that job becomes who we are for the rest of our lives. And we're supposed to retire and save up money. And then in retirement is when you get to enjoy the nice things in life. And what we do along that path is we tend to self-sabotage. We sabotage really our existence in attempting to have something more. And in that self-sabotage comes a lot of self-criticism. It becomes a lot of you're not good enough. It becomes a lot of you can't do that because you didn't start early enough. It becomes a lot of this negative self-talk. And in that, we end up driving the subconscious to not believe in who we are, to not believe in our capabilities. And so when we're looking at self-sabotaging behaviors, we first have to come back to, okay, what are my thoughts, or what do I actually say to myself on a regular basis, right? When something else comes up, when you see something that excites you or that you really want to get into, what are the things you say to yourself? That's the first thing we need to talk about, is what are the words that come out of here and I listen to on a regular basis. When we define that and can understand that, we can see, okay, that in and of itself becomes a limiting belief. It becomes a narrative that underlines everything that we're doing in life. And when our subconscious comes back to using the power, because the subconscious is 1,000,000 times more powerful than your prefrontal cortex. So when you're operating on a system that is basically underlying all your beliefs and thoughts and actions and words, but it's not a conscious thought, when that is running everything, well, the things that you say to yourself in the beginning of that are what program the subconscious when you're not paying attention. And so the more you tell yourself negative thoughts, the more you give yourself negative criticisms, the more you have negative language towards you or what you're capable of in the conscious state, the more that plays into the subconscious belief. So the first thing is, what am I saying to myself when I get excited about something or believe there's something I want to do or have a thought of just this bigger, better, life that I could take on. So that's the first thing. That's how we start sabotaging. And then when we sabotage ourselves, we also start to believe, what's the box that I'm in? What are the things I tell myself about who I am? What are the things people have told me growing up? One of the stories for me was that I wasn't smart, right? My brother, incredibly intelligent human being, he was the smart one. I was the one that was good at sports, but I didn't really have the intellectual capacity or intelligence to surpass my brother or to do great things. I was looked at as, even by my family. This isn't just saying that this is other people. This is actually by my family. I wasn't looked at, oh yeah, like he's going to do something great. It's, oh yeah, he's going to be a blue collar worker just like his dad and just like a lot of the other people in his family. He's not going to surpass that, do anything different. And intelligently, he's not going to end up getting a lot of degrees, or he's not going to exceed expectations when it comes to scholastic adventures. And so for me, there was a lot of limiting belief there. I didn't believe that I was intelligent, and, I didn't believe that I had the capability to be something bigger if it wasn't in sports. But when I took off to the military, right? And this is a tangent. So guys, I'm giving you a little bit of a background here for a reason, because this is where self-sabotage came into play. When I went off to the military, it was a lot more physically demanding, and I was good at those things. But intellectually, it wasn't super high until I got to special operations. And in special operations, I had to have a high level of intelligence and intellect. And if I didn't have that, I was not going to succeed there, because the way that we operated was different from what everybody else did. The way that we operated was more critical thinking and more self-thinking, as opposed to just following a plan, right? Because we had more flexibility, because we were doing very dangerous stuff and we were going after the baddest of the bad when it came to terrorists. So we had to get creative and we had to outthink them. It wasn't just a force on force type thing. And so, especially with the terrorists that we were going after. So when I realized there was a different level to me, intelligence wise, I started to have a different belief system. But that didn't happen until much later in my life. And that early belief system pervaded my subconscious and limited me on my capabilities. And so when we think about this, the self-sabotage becomes, what is it that we're saying every day to ourselves? That's the big piece. What are the things that we're saying to ourselves every day? And what are the boxes we've already put ourselves in? If we've placed ourselves in a box and say, for instance, we're in our 30s or even our 40s and getting up there in our life as far as age, when we've already put ourselves in our box, we don't have a belief that we can exceed those values. Or when we put ourselves in a box on, what it is we grew up with and how we're going to follow the same path for being that type of father or that type of husband, what we perceived and what was the aspects of, the people we looked up to. What did they hand us, right? What were the ways they acted, the philosophies, the words? Those things, if we put ourselves in a box on that, then we self-sabotage even our relationships. And so the other piece to this is, when we tell ourselves we're not good enough for things in life, we also tell ourselves we're not good enough for things in relationships. And that's another self-sabotaging piece here. And don't worry, guys, we're going to get to the development pieces of giving you some tangible techniques to break through this. But let's identify, because I think we can all resonate with this. And I know that me going through my life, even in relationships, it was, I'm not a good man, right? Or who am I to have such a beautiful woman? Or who am I to have such an amazing woman who supports me and loves me? I don't deserve that. So what happens? We start to do stupid shit that sabotages our relationships. We start to do stupid shit that sabotages our communication with that person, because of the fact that we simply just don't believe we deserve something better, more, or heightened. And so thinking about that allows us to say, okay, where does that belief come from? Why have we painted the picture of that in our minds? And how is that impacting our relationship? And why am I allowing that to impact my relationship? Why don't I deserve something better? Most of the self-sabotage that we have in our lives comes from the belief that we are not worth something, that we do not deserve something. And if we can give ourselves empathy, if we can give ourselves love, and if we can give ourselves support, none of these things which men are particularly strong at until we develop those skills. Well, until we do that, we're going to have the vicious cycle of sabotaging everything that we put ourselves into. Why can't we make enough money? Why can't we make more money? Why can't I start a business? Why can't I be a better father? Why can't I be a better husband? If we don't treat ourselves better, we will not be able to actualize what life can be for us. Happiness, joy, expansion, wealth. energy, abundance, love, all of these things can be what we have in life when we get through the self-sabotaging. But it all comes back to how we treat ourselves. Now, you are going to find as we continue down this, and if you jump over to the podcast, The Art of Masculinity, and you go back in the episodes there, you're going to find there's a prevailing theme here, and that is everything starts within us, men. Everything starts within us. We are the first place we have to look for everything that is external to us. Now, when we come to critical thinking, when we come to understanding the internal pieces, we can start to look outward and see how we impact and affect the things in our lives, the outcomes in our lives, what we receive from the universe or from God, whatever you believe in. What you receive from that comes from what we have internally first, because we are the ones that are putting the energy out. And so when we have negative thoughts about who we are as human beings, as lovers, as fathers, as husbands, as businessmen, as colleagues, as managers, when we have certain beliefs around that, we are going to attract what we think about in those beliefs. And that is something that I've struggled with for a long, long time, guys. And you can, if you go over to the podcast, you'll hear me talk about this. I am very open about the fact that I am not perfect, and my beliefs are based on, a lot of what was early on, what was programmed, and then me questioning those beliefs after I came to the realization that there was a different aspect in how we operate in this life if we just allow ourselves to question what was given to us and then make our own new perceptions based around our levels of intelligence and awareness. But back to the story here, back to the self-sabotaging, is I went through this and still go through this. I still have to question my own thoughts about myself. I still have to question, when I have negative self-talk, I'm not good enough for something. Trust me, the entrepreneurship journey has been absolutely something that I've struggled with along the way. And I know many men do and women do as well, but entrepreneurship is not easy in any way, shape, or form. But it has allowed me to revisit a lot of the negative self-talk that I've had in my life and see it in a place from being more aware. And so let's get to the tangible pieces here, which is how do we end up changing the self-sabotaging behaviors and thoughts? Because the behaviors are followed by the perception that we're not good enough. The behaviors are the outward expression of the negative self-talk that we've internalized. Again, starts in here. So when we come back to this, we have to first question the words that we're saying to ourselves. Hey, I can't start a business. I'm 35 years old. I need to just put my head down, follow the career path I've been on for the last decade plus, and just stick with that. Because one, that's what I was programmed to do by society. But number two, I've also been told that it's too late in life to start anything else. Now, if that is what you're saying to yourself, then it becomes why? Why is it the belief that we can't start a business at 35 or 40 or 45 or 50? Why can't we leave a job, a 9-to-5, a cog in the wheel? Why can't we leave that and start something on our own? If this is what you're having the thoughts around, right? Questioning what you're capable of. Why can't we start something new? Why don't we want to apply ourselves to something new? We all started this is what really gets me, and I didn't realize this for the longest time, is I have a set of skills that I no longer actually really use for my job, and I used those for over a decade. And I transitioned myself to something different that is not even near where I was before. And then from that, I've spent another decade doing, and I am transitioning into something very different from the last decade, and incorporating what I've learned from both decades. So it's understanding that, you can start differently, but you always have to start somewhere and not be afraid to quote unquote fail, right? Because failure is just a perception of what we put on ourselves as expectations, but you have to be willing to struggle. You have to be willing to be a student again. You have to be willing to fail again and use the failures as opportunities, not as obstacles, right? And that's something Dr. Wayne Dyer talks about is, do you see that as an obstacle or an opportunity? And as an opportunity, it is a development piece. And then it starts to rear its head in never being a failure. It becomes opportunity. It becomes opportunity to change and to adapt and to excel in ways that you've now learned. So understanding that we have the ability to, number one, question why we believe that this is the case, whether it's the words we're saying to ourselves or the box that we've put ourselves in. Now let's go to the self-sabotaging in relationships. I'm not good enough. I am not good enough to have this woman. I am not good enough to be treated this well. I am not good enough to have amazing kids. It reminds me, if you guys have ever watched the show The Vikings, and Floki, one of the characters in there, has a daughter, and he doesn't believe that life can be good. He gets frustrated with his partner, and he gets frustrated that the fact that life is actually good, because all he knows is turmoil. All he knows is the cyclical events of struggle and hardships and hate and violence. Well, guys, we are that man. We are those men. We have been bred to believe that struggle and martyrdom as a man and sacrifice is what we are supposed to live with. But at the end of the day, those self-sabotaging beliefs end up causing us to struggle when times are good. When we are reaping the benefits of the fruit that we've planted, we end up struggling because of the fact that we only see life as being bad. So understand, men, that if you are self-sabotaging in relationships, a lot of that is coming from that negative self-talk, and you have to question, why don't you think you're good enough? Why don't you believe that you deserve the good things in a relationship? Why don't you believe that you have the ability to really have a good life? And it can be good regularly, guys. It doesn't have to be struggle here, good here, struggle here, good here. It can be good all the way through. It can be more often good than not. We have that ability. We deserve that, but we won't deserve that. We won't realize that until we question why we think we have to struggle. So self-sabotaging comes with these negative self-talks, and it only is corrected or changed when we start questioning. And then when we question the thoughts, the next piece to this is giving yourself a different perception and using words that influence positive events. So when we're saying, I'm not good enough, I don't deserve to have a good life or to have a good wife or a happy life or anything like that, it's questioning and then saying that I do deserve that. I have done a lot in my life to be a man that deserves the good things, the happiness, the joy. I deserve those things. And so when you reframe that, what we are doing is now tapping into the subconscious and giving it new language to follow. And the more we do this, the more we bring ourselves out of self-sabotage, because we're changing the internalization of the words, thoughts, and feelings, right? So the energy that flows out now becomes positive energy, which influences positive outcomes externalized to us, and then we receive positive outcomes internally. So guys, these are the pieces that we can start with when we talk about self-sabotaging, when we correct what it is that has been given to us, not out of malice, but out of unknowing. We can become more aware. So dive into this, guys. Think about how you can do this in your life. Think about how you can change this in your life. And just remember that the power lies within, and everything starts within. So start here first before we start looking out that way. All right, guys, I hope this is helping you on your way to better this self-sabotaging narrative. Trust me, I know what that feels like. I've been there before, and I know what it is to live in that. And I still have those conversations, but now I have the toolbox to make a difference, and so do you.